If we were to stop 50 people in the middle of rugby and ask them if they would like to be able to see into the future, we would receive a number of different responses. Some, I'm fairly sure, would want to know. Okay, let's just say somebody has a new job that is offered to them. It would be useful to know, is it going to work? Is it going to be a good move? If someone is going to make financial investments, is it going to pay off here? Am I going to make money, or am I going to lose my investment? Is it going to go down? So it would be useful to know, useful to be able to see into the future. Indeed, if I wanted to be rich, which I don't, and I could see into the future, well, it wouldn't be very difficult to become rich. I could become very rich very quickly. I would know what the numbers would be, 21, 24, 31, bonus ball 12, and with hardly any effort on my part, at a tiny amount of expense, I could be very wealthy very quickly. Whether it would do me any good would be another matter, but I could be a millionaire overnight. But of course, there may be reasons why people might not want to know what the future holds. If someone is going to suffer very real financial problems, it's probably better not to know. Or if somebody's going to have an accident, you don't want to know. And yet people spend so much time and so much money, so much effort trying to work out what the future holds. Open almost any newspaper and you will find a horoscope which will tell you apparently what is going to happen to you based on the time of the year when you were born. And we might smile at this because, of course, the comments there are so vague, so general. But I used to work with a woman years ago. She was absolutely adamant her first marriage failed because she was a Libran and her husband was a Sagittarian. Or tarot cards. They are said to reveal what is going to happen based upon the particular card that might be drawn. Other people go and see fortune tellers. Now, a family member of mine who was not a Christadelphian went to see a very apparently highly regarded, greatly respected fortune teller. I don't know how much he paid, but I'm sure it wasn't free. And I said, what happened? What were you told? He said, well, considering this chap came with a glowing reputation, hardly anything. It was waffle for about 45 minutes with one prediction only. And the prediction that this gentleman made about my relation is that one day you are going to be at some fancy black tie dinner, but you will be on the outside looking in. You won't be part of it. One of his friends suggested perhaps you'll be serving the drinks. It may not surprise you to know that that prediction never, ever came true. Some have their own books that they believe to be holy, that they believe reveal the future for them. And it will not surprise you to know that I believe that the Bible reveals our futures very clearly. About 2 billion people on the face of this planet are Muslim, about 24% of all the population of the world, and they regard the Quran as a holy book. Now, what does the Quran say then about the future? This is an example that was quoted to me. So, he has created horses and mules and asses that you may ride them, and as a source of beauty, and he will create what you do not yet know. This is said to be a prophecy of the forsaking of old-fashioned methods of transportation and faster and newer methods coming in. So, out go camels and in come jumbo jets. Out go donkeys and in come high-speed trains. Now, I would not wish to mock something which is regarded by so many as a holy book. But surely there are more important things in this world than methods of transportation being outdated. What about major events in the nations of the world? What about the breakdown in society? What about world wars? As we will see, the Bible makes very, very specific prophecies about very important incidents. Before we get there, I wonder whether anybody in the audience knows who this is. Younger ones, almost certainly not. Okay? This was the science fiction author, somebody did, Isaac Asimov. He died in New York in 1992. Unsurprisingly, bearing in mind his name, his first name, he was Jewish. Very successful, one of the most successful sci-fi writers of all time. His works often portrayed the future, especially where robots played a massive part in everyday life. Now, in 1984, Isaac Asimov made predictions about life in 2019. These weren't prophecies. He didn't claim to be inspired. He certainly didn't say that this was a revelation from God. But this is what he believed life would be like today. Now, what did he say? Have his predictions come true? Number one, he said that computers would play a massive part in everyday life. No great surprise, really, I would imagine. In 1984, you could have predicted that. He was absolutely right. Can we have a show of hands, those who have a computer? Okay, right. So thank you very much. Hands down. Prediction number one has come true. But that was pretty safe, wasn't it? Let's be honest. Prediction number two, he said industry would change. High-powered manufacturing jobs, he said, would replace traditional industries. Now, he's only partly right. Because yes, indeed, in certain countries, the UK and the USA and others, certainly manufacturing is not what it once was. So jobs have changed. So there aren't very many people, for example, who are coal miners now in this country. And once that was a massive industry. But he said that this would change and be replaced by high-tech jobs. And you know, generally that isn't the case. The jobs that are done now are very often in the service industry. So we'll give him a question mark for number two prediction. Here's number three. Are you ready? He said people may well be living on the moon. Okay. So, life on the moon in 2019. Isaac Asimov's words. By 2019, not we might, but we will be back on the moon in force. The first space settlement should be on the drawing boards and may perhaps be under actual construction. It would be the first of many in which human beings could live by the tens of thousands and in which they could build small societies of all kinds, lending humanity a further twist of variety. Ah, the optimism of the science fiction writer. I have no insight into what is being planned by NASA, but I'm reasonably sure there are no immediate plans for tens of thousands of people to live in bases upon the moon. Nonetheless, people, both religious and non-politicians, captains of industry, the average man and woman in the street, they all want to know what the future holds. What will the world be like? For my children, for my grandchildren. This is a very logical, and let's face it, bearing in mind the issues to do with global warming, a very real issue, a very genuine question. There is, in fact, even a World Future Society, which was founded in 1966. The whole aim of the society is to influence decision makers throughout the world to try to create a better world, a better environment. But you can look online, and there are all sorts of pictures of what the world of the future will be like. Okay? They are all amazing. They are almost all high-rise. I don't really know what these things are that are floating in the sky, but I'm sure they will serve a vital purpose. All glamorous and amazing and high-tech. And of course, they are only the guesses of the people of this age. Nobody knows for sure what the future holds? Not quite. There are some people who do. And those who are local meet in this room every single week. Now, how do Christadelphians know what the future holds? Is it because they are particularly clever or special or powerful? No. In actual fact, the opposite is true. Christadelphians are ordinary people with an extraordinary hope. We base our beliefs on this book, the Bible, and nothing else. And this is why we know what the future holds. This is why we can state openly there is only one foolproof way of predicting the future, and it is the Bible, which we believe is God's word. It is tried, it is trusted, it is never, ever wrong. And it can be shown to be reliable and trustworthy because of predictions which are made here, which have come true. And that tells us what? That predictions that are made that are yet to come true will indeed happen. These things will be true. They will come to pass upon the earth. Now, if indeed this is true, then what a privilege is ours that we can read these things and know what the future holds. Why should we trust the Bible more than any other book? One example, then we really are going to look at our subject, and we're going to think about fulfilled prophecy and one demonstration of this. There are many examples of Bible prophecies having been made and having come true, some relating to specific cities or nations or key events in history. There are even prophecies about society today and the breakdown in society. The Bible said it would happen. We're going to look at one example. For me, it is the best, the most obvious example. We're going to think about the people of Israel and their land. Wind the clock back 100 years to this very day in 1919. The map of the Middle East looked very different. I've got a red pointer, which of course I can't use because of the kind of screen it is. Nonetheless, here we have an area which is called Palestine, within that blue box. Very, very different from today. The orange areas were under what was known as the British Mandate. What's a mandate? It is an official order or a commission to do something. And Britain had authority over various regions, and one of them specifically there is Palestine. And that situation had to change. It had to change. Why? Because the Bible demanded that this area had to be repopulated and renamed. Those who were going to go there were the Jews, and this land was going to be called Israel. Just one verse, Ezekiel 38, please. Now, Ezekiel 38 is all about a massive invasion of Israel, a land and a people, by a power primarily in the north. We're not going to look at the name of the power and the allies that are there with this power, but this great invading force is going to sweep south into the Middle East. Now, bearing in mind these words were written 2,500 years ago, definitely written before 1919, okay? Look at verse 8. After many days, thou, this is the invading power, shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely or securely, all of them. Now, we have a lot of information there in that one verse about the people that would dwell in this land, about what they would be like. They would dwell in a state of security, of self-confidence. All I want us to notice is this. These people dwelling in the land They're called Palestine. They've been gathered out of the nations. They are back. They are living in the land of Israel. Notice the mountains of Israel. It's got to be renamed. The Bible said it would happen, and it did. And it did. And the nation was reborn officially in 1948. Just think about this unique nation, this unique people. Has any people other than the Jews been taken from their ancient homeland and scattered right throughout the world, everywhere throughout the world? You know, you open a telephone directory and look for a surname. Abraham's, Isaac, Goldberg, Jacobs, they're there. There are Jews everywhere. Has any other nation been persecuted everywhere they went, with so many of them being killed? And there are those who would dare to question the actual numbers of the Holocaust and the number that died. They will not accept the truth. It was around 6 million, possibly more. Any other nation survived against all the odds, maintained their separation and their independence, their identity. And then, 2,000 years on, the descendants of those that were scattered are regathered, brought back to their homeland, and the nation is reborn, and then thrive despite all sorts of opposition. The Bible said this would happen. That is why I am absolutely adamant that this book is what it claims to be. It's not just an interesting read. It's not just a useful moral framework for somebody's life. It is the word of the living God, which tells us about him and what he wants from us. Let's move on to our subject. What does the Bible say about the world of the future?